The alarm bells rang across the Galactic Council's monitoring station like angry metal birds. Lieutenant Commander Zex-9 of the Andromedan Defense Corps stared at his screen with all four of his eyes wide open. The readings made no sense. Nothing could survive in the Nexus Forbidden Zone. Nothing had survived there for 10,000 years. "Sir, you need to see this," Zex-9 called to his superior, his voice shaking through his translation device. Admiral Korth Prime floated over to the monitoring station, her gaseous form shifting colors from calm blue to worried purple. She had been watching the Forbidden Zone for 60 years. Nothing ever happened there. Nothing ever could happen there. "What is it, Lieutenant?" she asked, her voice like wind through crystal caves. "There's a ship in the zone, sir. A human ship." The words hung in the air like a bad smell. Admiral Korth Prime's form turned completely red, the color of shock and disbelief among her people. "That's impossible. Run the scan again. Zex-9's 4. Hands moved quickly over his controls. The same readings appeared on the screen. A ship, definitely human in design, moving slowly but steadily through the most dangerous region of known space. Identification shows it as the USS Liberty Human Registry. 200 crew members aboard, all life signs normal. Admiral Korth Prime felt something she had not experienced in decades: fear. The Nexus Forbidden Zone was not just dangerous. It was a place where reality itself broke down. Quantum storms that could tear apart atoms. Gravity wells that folded space inside out. Time distortions that could age a person to dust in seconds or freeze them forever. "How long have they been in there?" she asked. "According to our logs, they entered the zone 6 hours ago." "Sir, the strangest part is that they seem to be following a specific course. This isn't random wandering. They know where they're going." 6 hours. Most ships died within minutes of entering the zone. The few that lasted longer were found as twisted metal scattered across space, their crews nothing but empty uniforms floating in the void. Admiral Korth Prime activated the emergency communication system. Within minutes, every major government in the galaxy would know about this impossible situation. Meanwhile, aboard the USS Liberty, Captain Jake Morrison sipped his morning coffee and looked out at the beautiful star field ahead of them. It was his third cup of the day, and the coffee tasted better than usual. Space exploration was his passion, and this mission was the best assignment he had ever received. "Beautiful view today, isn't it, Amy?" he said to his communications officer. Amy Johnson nodded from her station. "Yes, sir. The stellar formations in this region are unlike anything I've seen before. Dr. Miller says we're seeing stars that aren't on any of our charts." Captain Morrison smiled. Discovery was what they lived for. Finding new star systems, new planets, maybe even new forms of life. That was why humanity had built ships like the Liberty and sent them into the unknown reaches of space. "Any word from Earth?" he asked. "No, sir. We're still too far out for normal communications. Should I try to boost the signal?" "No need. We're supposed to maintain radio silence during the exploration phase anyway. They'll hear from us when we complete the mission." Dr. Sarah Miller walked onto the bridge carrying a data pad full of readings. She was the chief science officer, and her excitement was obvious on her face. "Captain, you have to see these readings. The energy signatures in this region are off the charts. We're detecting massive power sources, but they're not like anything we've encountered before." She handed the data pad to Captain Morrison. The numbers meant little to him, but he could see that they were much higher than normal background radiation. "Any idea what's causing it?" he asked. "Not yet, but I have a theory. This region might be some kind of natural phenomenon. Maybe a place where different dimensions touch our universe. The reading suggests that space itself is different here. Navigator Chris Walker looked up from his station. Captain, I'm getting some strange readings from the navigation system. According to our instruments, we should be in completely empty space. But I'm seeing star systems that match the ancient charts from the Mars artifacts. Captain Morrison nodded. The Mars artifacts were the reason for this mission. When humanity had first colonized Mars, they had found ruins buried deep beneath the surface. Most of the artifacts were beyond understanding, but some contained what appeared to be star charts and navigation data. The scientists on Earth had spent decades trying to understand the charts. When they finally decoded them, they revealed the location of what appeared to be a hidden region of space, a place where ancient technology might still exist. Keep following the charts, Chris. If the artifacts led us here, there must be something important to find. Yes, sir. According to the navigation data, we should reach our destination in about 12 hours. Captain Morrison felt the familiar excitement of discovery. Whatever secrets lay ahead, humanity would be the first to uncover them. He had no idea that outside the zone, half the galaxy was panicking about his presence. Back at the monitoring station, Admiral Korth Prime received the first responses to her emergency alert. The reactions were exactly what she had expected. Disbelief, followed by fear, followed by demands for immediate action. The Zephyrian High Command wanted the humans destroyed before they could cause any damage. The Crystalline Federation demanded that the Galactic Council take responsibility for humanity's actions. Most disturbing of all, the ancient ethereal collective had broken their centuries-long silence to send a single message. The time of choosing has begun. Admiral Korth Prime had no idea what that meant, but it filled her with dread. The ethereals were the oldest known species in the galaxy. They had been ancient when most current civilizations were still learning to make fire. If they were concerned, then the situation was far worse than anyone imagined. Lieutenant, I want continuous monitoring of that human ship. Record everything. And get me a direct line to the Galactic Council emergency session. They need to know about this immediately. As the USS Liberty continued its journey through impossible space, the rest of the galaxy prepared for consequences that no one could predict. The Forbidden Zone had been sealed for good reasons, and now those reasons were about to be tested by the most unpredictable species in known space, humanity. Admiral Lisa Carter received the emergency call while she was eating breakfast in her quarters aboard the Earth Defense Station. The scrambled message from the Galactic Council monitoring station made her drop her coffee cup. Human vessel in Forbidden Zone. Impossible survival. Council demands immediate explanation. Lisa had been in charge of Earth's relations with alien governments for 15 years. She had handled diplomatic crises, trade disputes, and territorial disagreements. But nothing had prepared her for this. She activated her personal communicator and called the emergency contact at Earth Command. This is Admiral Carter. I need immediate confirmation of all human ships in deep space. Priority Alpha. The response came back within minutes. Admiral, all registered human vessels are accounted for. No ships are missing or overdue. Lisa felt her stomach drop. If no human ships were supposed to be in that region, then how was the USS Liberty there? And more importantly, how was it surviving in a place that had killed everything else for 10,000 years? Her communicator buzzed again. This time it was a direct call from the Zephyrian High Command. Admiral Vex Torin's insect-like face appeared on her screen, his mandibles clicking with agitation. Admiral Carter, your species has violated the most sacred law in the galaxy. No ship may enter the Nexus Forbidden Zone. The penalty for this violation is destruction of the offending vessel and immediate quarantine of your entire species. Lisa kept her voice calm, despite the fear growing in her chest. Admiral Vex Torin, I assure you that no human ship has been authorized to enter the Forbidden Zone. We are investigating this situation immediately. Your investigations mean nothing. The ship exists. It moves through space that should kill it instantly. Either your species has developed technology beyond our understanding, or you have made contact with forces that should remain hidden forever. The connection ended abruptly. Lisa knew that the Zephyrians were not the type to make empty threats. If they decided that humanity was a threat, they had the military power to end human space travel permanently. Before she could process this fully, another call came in. This time it was from the Crystalline Federation. The crystal being on the screen pulsed with angry red light. Human Admiral, your species has brought chaos to the ordered galaxy. The Forbidden Zone was sealed for the protection of all life. By entering it, you risk awakening things that were meant to sleep forever. I understand your concern, Lisa replied, but we need more time to understand what's happening. Time is a luxury we cannot afford. Every moment that ship remains in, the zone increases the danger to all civilized worlds. The calls kept coming. The Aquatic Union, the Machine Intelligence Collective, the Hive Mind Federation. Every major government in the galaxy wanted answers that Lisa didn't have. Meanwhile, Amy Johnson sat at her communications station aboard the USS Liberty, completely unaware of the panic she was causing. She was trying to establish contact with a signal she had detected on a frequency that shouldn't exist. Captain Morrison to the bridge? She called over the ship's intercom. I'm picking up some very strange transmissions. Captain Morrison arrived within minutes, still carrying the coffee cup he had been refilling in the break room. What kind of transmissions? He asked. Sir, they're coming from multiple directions, but they're not from any known human or alien sources. The signals are using mathematical patterns that I've never seen before. It's almost like they're trying to communicate, but using concepts that don't exist in any language database. Amy played the recordings through the bridge speakers. The sounds were unlike anything the crew had heard before. They seemed to flow like music, but with an underlying structure that suggested complex meaning. How far away are these signals coming from? Captain Morrison asked. That's the strange part, sir. According to our instruments, they're coming from everywhere at once, like the space around us is full of invisible transmitters. Dr. Sarah Miller entered the bridge carrying her latest sensor readings. Her excitement from earlier had been replaced by confusion and concern. Captain, I need to report something unusual. Our sensors are detecting massive structures in this region, but when we try to focus on them, they seem to disappear. It's like looking at something through water that keeps moving. Navigator Chris Walker looked up from his station. I'm seeing the same thing with the navigation readings. The star charts from the artifacts show solid objects and planetary systems, but our sensors can't get a clear lock on anything. Captain Morrison felt the first hint of unease. In his 20 years of space exploration, he had learned to trust his instruments. When multiple systems gave conflicting readings, it usually meant trouble. Dr. Miller, what's your professional opinion? Are we in any immediate danger? I don't think so, sir. All our life support systems are functioning normally. The ship's hull is showing no signs of stress. But something about this place is affecting our ability to perceive it clearly. It's like the space here operates by different rules. Amy Johnson suddenly turned from her station, her face pale. Captain, I just received a transmission on our emergency frequency. It's from the Galactic Council monitoring station. Put it through. The voice that came through the speakers was mechanical and cold. "Human vessel USS Liberty, you are ordered to immediately reverse course and exit the Nexus Forbidden Zone. Your presence in this region violates galactic law and threatens the safety of all civilized worlds." Captain Morrison looked confused. "Forbidden Zone. Amy, check our navigation database. Is this region marked as restricted?" Amy's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "Sir, according to our charts, this is unexplored space. There are no restriction warnings in our database." "Dr. Miller, any ideas why our charts wouldn't show restrictions?" "It's possible that the information was classified above our clearance level, sir. Deep space exploration missions sometimes operate with limited data for security reasons." Captain Morrison made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "Amy, send a response to the monitoring station. Tell them that we're on an authorized Earth mission and that we'll complete our objectives before returning to normal space." "Sir, are you sure? They sounded pretty serious about us leaving." "Amy, we're scientists and explorers. We've come too far to turn back now without learning what's out here. Besides, if this region was truly dangerous, Earth Command would never have sent us here." As Amy transmitted the response, she had no idea that her message would trigger emergency sessions in governments across the galaxy. The humans were not leaving. They were continuing deeper into the zone, following charts that shouldn't exist, toward a destination that had been hidden for 10,000 years. Admiral Lisa Carter received word of the transmission 30 minutes later. As she read Captain Morrison's message, she realized that humanity was about to face the greatest crisis in its history. The humans in the Forbidden Zone were not just lost explorers. They were following a mission that someone had authorized. Someone with access to information that even she didn't have. The question was, who had sent them, and what did they hope to find in a place where reality itself came apart at the seams? The Great Council Chamber had not seen this much activity in over a century. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive circular hall, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, electrical pulses, and telepathic waves. At the center of it all sat Helen Parker, Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, trying to maintain her composure while the entire galaxy demanded answers she didn't have. "Order! Order!" called Council Speaker Thex 9, his three heads, speaking in unison. "We will address this crisis in a civilized manner." Ambassador Parker looked around the chamber at faces that ranged from concerned to furious. Some species had skin that changed color with emotion, making their anger obvious. Others communicated through scent, and the air in the chamber was thick with the smell of fear and rage. "Ambassador Parker," Speaker Thex 9 continued, "your species stands accused of violating the most ancient law in galactic civilization. How do you respond?" Helen stood slowly, knowing that her next words could determine the future of humanity's place in the galaxy. "Honored Speaker, members of the Council, I must first state that Earth's government has no knowledge of any human vessel in the Forbidden Zone. All of our deep space ships are accounted for and operating in authorized sectors." A wave of angry sounds swept through the chamber. Representative Kwanzor of the Silicon Republic spoke first, his crystal body flashing red. "Impossible. Our sensors clearly show a human ship operating in the zone. Are you suggesting our technology is faulty?" "Not at all," Helen replied carefully. "I'm simply stating that this ship is not operating under any orders that I'm aware of. We are investigating the situation." "Investigating!" The shout came from Admiral Vex Torin, representing the military faction. "While you investigate, this ship moves deeper into forbidden territory. Every moment it remains there increases the danger to us all. Helen felt sweat forming on her forehead, despite the cool air in the chamber. Admiral, with respect, perhaps you could explain why this region is forbidden. The human government has never received a complete briefing on the nature of the threat. The chamber fell silent. Helen could feel the weight of 47 different species staring at her. Finally, Speaker Thex 9 spoke. The Nexus Forbidden Zone was sealed 10,000 years ago after the Great War. What lies within that region must never be disturbed. The knowledge of its contents is restricted to the highest levels of galactic security. Before Helen could respond, the chamber's communication system activated. A new presence entered the meeting, one that made every representative in the room freeze with shock. The Ethereal Collective had not participated in galactic politics for over 3,000 years. The voice that spoke seemed to come from everywhere at once, like wind carrying whispers from a distant place. The human ship follows paths that were set before your civilizations learned to count the stars. What you call forbidden, we call inevitable. Speaker Thex 9's 3 heads all turned toward the communication array. Honored Ethereals, we are grateful for your wisdom. Can you explain the meaning of your earlier message about the time of choosing? Every cycle, the test begins again. Species rise and fall. Technologies advance and fail. But only one per cycle is chosen to face what lies at the center. The humans have been selected. Helen felt her heart racing. Selected by whom? For what purpose? By those who came before. For the purpose that all things serve. The continuation of existence itself. The cryptic answers were frustrating, but Helen pressed on. Are our people in danger? All existence is in danger, always. The question is whether your species will increase that danger or help to diminish it. The communication ended as suddenly as it had begun. The chamber erupted in confused chatter as representatives tried to understand what they had just heard. While the council debated, Dr. Ben Rodriguez sat in his laboratory on the research station orbiting Kepler Prime, studying data that made his hands shake. As the galaxy's leading expert on Forbidden Zone phenomena, he had been called in to provide analysis of the human ship's journey. What he found defied everything he knew about physics. Computer, display trajectory analysis of human vessel USS Liberty, he said to his workstation. The holographic display showed the ship's path through the Forbidden Zone, but this wasn't random movement. The path followed specific energy patterns that Ben had studied for decades. Computer, overlay ancient energy grid patterns from archived archaeological survey data. The new display made Ben's breath catch in his throat. The human ship was following ley lines, energy patterns left by an ancient civilization that supposedly had never existed. According to the official records, these patterns were natural phenomena. But Ben's research had always suggested otherwise. He activated his secure communication line to the council chamber. Speaker Thex 9, this is Dr. Rodriguez. I have urgent findings to report. Within moments, his analysis appeared on the main display in the chamber. The mathematical precision of the ship's course was undeniable. Honored Council, Ben's voice came through the speakers. The human vessel is not wandering randomly through the zone. It's following a deliberate path along what appear to be artificial energy conduits. These conduits match patterns found at archaeological sites throughout the galaxy. Representative Wythe Azak of the Archaeological Union spoke up. Dr. Rodriguez, are you suggesting that this ship has knowledge of the precursor civilization? That's exactly what I'm suggesting. Somehow this human ship has access to navigation data that predates every known civilization in the galaxy. The implications hit the chamber like a bomb. If humans had precursor technology, it would explain how they could survive in the Forbidden Zone. But it would also mean that they possessed knowledge that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Ambassador. Parker felt the mood in the chamber shift from anger to fear. Dr. Rodriguez, is there any way to determine where this navigation data came from? I'd need access to the ship's computers to be certain, but based on the precision of their course, I'd say they're using actual precursor navigation systems. Not copies or reconstructions, the real thing. Helen's mind raced. Where would humans have gotten precursor technology? Earth's space program was barely 3 centuries old. They were among the youngest species in galactic civilization. Then, she remembered something from her briefings about Earth's early space exploration. The Mars colonies had found ruins, ancient ruins that predated human civilization. Most of the artifacts had been classified and turned over to research divisions. Council members, Helen said, I request a recess to contact Earth Command for additional information about this mission. Request denied, Speaker Thex 9 replied. Every moment this ship remains in the zone increases the risk to galactic stability. We need answers now. Admiral Vex Torin stood again. I propose immediate military intervention. A strike force should be dispatched to destroy the human vessel before it can reach whatever lies at the center of the zone. You can't do that, Helen protested. There are 200 innocent people aboard that ship. 200 lives weighed against billions across the galaxy, the Admiral replied. The mathematics are simple. As the Council prepared to vote on military action, Helen realized that humanity was facing its greatest crisis. Whatever secrets lay in the Forbidden Zone, they were important enough that the oldest civilization in the galaxy was watching, and whatever had given humans the ability to navigate that zone was about to either save humanity or destroy it. The vote was called. Helen Parker watched as species after species voted to authorize military action against the USS Liberty. When the count was finished, the result was devastating. 38 votes in favor of destroying the ship, 9 against. As Helen prepared to watch her own species become the target of galactic military action, she wondered if Captain Morrison and his crew had any idea that their peaceful exploration mission had just become a race for survival. Commander Rick Taylor sat in the deepest level of the Earth Defense Command bunker, staring at a communication screen that showed Ambassador Parker's desperate face. The vote had been cast. The Galactic Council was sending a fleet to destroy the USS Liberty. Rick had 15 minutes to decide whether to reveal the most classified secret in human history. Commander Taylor, Helen's voice came through the secure channel. I need to know right now if there's anything about this mission that I should know. The Council is about to authorize an attack on our people. Rick rubbed his tired eyes. He had hoped this day would never come. For 30 years, he had been the keeper of humanity's darkest secret, and now it was about to cost 200 lives. Helen, what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels. Only 12 people on Earth know the full truth. Just tell me what's happening out there. Rick activated his personal security protocol and began the story that would change everything. In 2157, when we first established permanent colonies on Mars, our mining operations found something buried 3 kilometers beneath the surface. At first, we thought it was just unusual rock formations, but when our archaeologists examined it more closely, we realized we were looking at artificial structures. Helen's face showed confusion. Artificial? You mean alien? Not just alien, ancient. Carbon dating suggested the structures were over 50,000 years old. But that wasn't the strangest part. The technology we found was still functional. Rick pulled up classified files on his screen. Images of metallic objects with flowing organic designs appeared. We found navigation computers, star charts, and what appeared to be some kind of guidance system. All of it was made from materials we couldn't identify. Why wasn't this reported to the Galactic Council? Helen asked. Because we tried to understand it first. The objects seemed to respond to human presence in ways they didn't respond to our alien observers. When Zephyrian scientists examined the artifacts, nothing happened. When humans touched them, they activated. Helen felt a chill run down her spine. What did they do? They showed us star charts, maps of regions that weren't in any galactic database, including detailed navigation data for a region that we now know is the Nexus Forbidden Zone. Rick switched to another file showing technical specifications that looked impossibly advanced. The Liberty was built specifically to use this technology. We integrated the navigation systems into her computers and trained Captain Morrison to operate equipment he was told was experimental human technology. You mean he doesn't know what he's really using? Morrison thinks he's testing new navigation systems developed by Earth's research division. His mission orders were to follow the navigation data and catalog whatever he found. We told him it was a routine deep space exploration mission. Helen stared at the screen in disbelief. Rick, do you realize what you've done? You've sent 200 people into the most dangerous region of space using technology you don't understand. We understand more than you think, Rick replied. The artifacts weren't just navigation tools. They contained historical records, data about ancient civilizations, galactic wars, and something called the Final Test. Rick pulled up another file, this one showing translation attempts of alien text. According to the records, every advanced civilization eventually discovers the Forbidden Zone. Most are destroyed when they try to enter. But occasionally, a species survives the journey. Those species become the guardians of something called the Deep Truth. Guardians of what? We don't know exactly. The translations are incomplete. But the records suggest that there's something in the center of the zone that requires constant protection. Something that could either save the galaxy or destroy it. Helen felt the weight of understanding. You think humans are supposed to be the next guardians? I think someone or something chose us for this role a long time ago. The artifacts weren't just left on Mars by accident. They were placed there, waiting for humanity to develop enough to find them. But why us? We're one of the youngest species in the galaxy. Rick smiled grimly. Maybe that's exactly why. Every other species in the galaxy has thousands of years of history telling them that the zone is forbidden. They've been trained to fear it. But humans? We don't have that cultural conditioning. When we see something marked as impossible, our first instinct is to try it anyway. Helen realized the full scope of what was happening. Rick, I need all of this data transmitted to the Council immediately. This isn't just about saving the Liberty. This is about proving that humanity isn't violating galactic law. We're fulfilling some kind of ancient mandate. I'll transmit everything we have. But Helen, there's something else you need to know. We've been monitoring the Liberty's progress, and they're not alone in the zone anymore. What do you mean? 3 hours ago, our deep space sensors detected massive energy signatures activating throughout the Forbidden Zone. Ancient defense. Systems that have been dormant for thousands of years are powering up. Whatever the Liberty is approaching, it's waking up. Meanwhile, aboard the USS Liberty, Dr. Sarah Miller was experiencing the same realization. Her instruments were detecting energy sources that dwarfed entire star systems. "Captain Morrison to the bridge," she called over the intercom. "You need to see this immediately." Captain Morrison arrived to find his science officer staring at readings that seemed impossible. "Sarah, what am I looking at?" "Sir, these are power output readings from the region ahead of us. The energy signatures are off our measurement scale. Whatever we're approaching is generating more power than 100 suns." Amy Johnson looked up from her communication station. "Captain, I'm receiving structured signals from the same direction. They're not random energy bursts. Someone or something is trying to communicate." Captain Morrison felt a mix of excitement and concern. "Can you decode the signals?" "I think so, sir. The mathematical patterns are similar to the ones in our navigation database. It's like whatever sent our navigation data is now trying to talk to us directly." Navigator Chris Walker added his own disturbing news. "Captain, according to our sensors, we're not just approaching a single object. There's an entire complex ahead of us. Structures the size of moons connected by energy conduits that stretch across light years." Captain Morrison looked around at his crew. These were some of the best scientists and explorers humanity had ever produced. If they were concerned, the situation was serious. "Options?" he asked. "We could turn back," Amy suggested. "Send a message to Earth Command and wait for orders." "We could continue forward and try to establish communication," Dr. Miller added. "We came here to explore, and this is the greatest discovery in human history." Captain Morrison made the decision that would determine the fate of both his crew and the galaxy. "We continue forward, but I want all departments on full alert. If this goes bad, I want to be ready." As the Liberty continued toward its destiny, the Galactic Council fleet was already moving to intercept them. Admiral Vex Torin commanded 47 ships from 12 different species, all armed with weapons capable of destroying entire planets. But they were heading toward a region where ancient powers were awakening, and where humanity was about to discover that some tests could only be taken once. The first sign that something fundamental had changed came from the outer rim of the galaxy. Ancient monitoring stations that had been silent for millennia suddenly burst to life, sending signals across space that made every advanced civilization's sensors scream with alarm. Dr. Ben Rodriguez was the first to understand what was happening. As sensor data poured in from across the galaxy, he realized that the USS Liberty's journey through the Forbidden Zone was triggering a galactic-wide awakening. "Computer, display all anomalous energy readings from the past 6 hours," he commanded. The holographic display filled his laboratory with points of light, each representing an ancient installation coming online. The pattern was unmistakable. A network of forgotten technology was reactivating across known space. "Oh no," Ben whispered. "It's not just the zone. The whole galaxy is connected." He activated his emergency communication line to the Galactic Council. "Speaker Thex-9, we have a massive problem. The human ship has triggered some kind of galactic defense network." Meanwhile, aboard the USS Liberty, Dr. Sarah Miller was staring at readings that defied explanation. The ship's sensors were detecting energy signatures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. "Captain," she called to Morrison, who was reviewing navigation charts at his command station. "I think we need to discuss what's happening to our crew." Captain Morrison looked up with concern. "What kind of problems?" "Sir," it started small. "Crew members reporting unusually vivid dreams. But in the past 2 hours, we've had 17 people report the same dream. Exactly the same dream. What kind of dream? Dr. Miller pulled up her medical logs. They're all dreaming about a massive space battle. Ships the size of planets fighting something that looks like living darkness. And, sir, they're not just observing the battle. They're experiencing it as if they were there. Captain Morrison felt a chill. Are they in any medical danger? Not physically, but the psychological effects are concerning. The crew members who've had the dream are showing signs of inherited memory syndrome. It's like they're remembering events that happened to someone else. Amy Johnson suddenly turned from her communications station, her face pale. Captain, I need to report something. I just had a flash of memory that isn't mine. What do you mean? Sir, I remember being in this exact location before, but in a different ship. I remember other humans being here, but that's impossible. We're supposed to be the first human ship to reach this region. Navigator Chris Walker looked up from his station with confusion. Captain, I'm experiencing the same thing. I have memories of navigating through this region before, following the same course we're on now. But I also remember this place being different, younger somehow. Captain Morrison realized that his crew was experiencing something beyond their understanding. Dr. Miller, could this be some kind of telepathic influence from whatever we're approaching? It's possible, sir. But there's another explanation. According to quantum physics, certain regions of space can contain temporal echoes, imprints of events that happened in the past. If this region has been the site of significant events, our minds might be picking up those echoes. You mean we're experiencing the past? Or the past is experiencing us. Time might not work the same way in this region. As if responding to their conversation, the ship's main display activated on its own. Images began appearing, not of their current location, but of the same region in what appeared to be ancient times. The crew watched in amazement as the display showed massive structures floating in space, cities the size of planets, connected by streams of energy that turned space itself into a living network. But the images also showed destruction, fleets of dark ships attacking the structures, turning the beautiful network into a battlefield. Amy, are you recording this? Captain Morrison asked. Yes, sir, but I don't understand where the signal is coming from. Our computers aren't accessing any external source. The images continued, showing the final battle. The defenders were losing, but they managed to activate some kind of massive device. The device didn't destroy the dark ships. Instead, it sealed them away, trapping them in a prison made of folded space and time. Captain, Dr. Miller said quietly, I think we're looking at the reason this zone was forbidden. That prison is still here. The display changed again, showing the aftermath of the battle. The surviving defenders were sealing away their own technology, hiding it across the galaxy in places where future civilizations might find it. The final image showed objects being buried on a red planet, objects that looked exactly like the artifacts found on Mars. They knew, Captain Morrison realized. Whoever fought that battle knew that someday another species would need to face the same threat. Chris Walker's voice was shaky as he reported from his navigation station. Captain, according to our instruments, we're approaching the center of the zone. And, sir, there's something massive ahead of us. The main display switched to show their current sensor readings. What they saw made the entire bridge crew fall silent. Ahead of them, floating in the void, was a structure that challenged human understanding. It was roughly spherical, but its surface seemed to shift and change as they watched. Parts of it existed in normal space, while other sections seemed to phase in and out of reality. How big is it? Captain Morrison asked. Sir, it's approximately the size of Earth's moon, but the mass readings are inconsistent. Sometimes it registers as having the mass of a planet, sometimes as having no mass at all. Dr. Miller's instruments were going crazy. Captain, that structure is the source of the temporal distortions. It's not just a prison, it's a bubble of contained time. Whatever is inside there is experiencing time differently than we are. Amy. Johnson's communications equipment suddenly burst to life. Signals poured in from every direction, but they weren't random. They were organized, structured, intelligent. Captain, I'm receiving communications from inside the structure. Multiple sources, all trying to contact us at once. Can you translate them? I think so, sir. The mathematical foundation is similar to our navigation data. But, sir, the content is disturbing. Amy's hands moved over her controls as she processed the incoming signals. Sir, there are two different types of communications coming from inside. One type seems to be warning us away, telling us to leave immediately. The other type is, sir, it's asking for help. Captain Morrison felt the weight of decision. Everything in his training told him to be cautious, to gather more information before acting. But the dreams his crew was experiencing told a different story. They were remembering ancient events where hesitation had led to disaster. Amy, can you establish two-way communication? I think so, sir. But, Captain, once we open that channel, whoever is inside will know exactly where we are and what we're capable of. Do it. As Amy opened the communication channel, alarms began, sounding throughout the ship. Not from their own systems, but from the structure ahead of them. Something inside the prison was responding to their presence, and it was massive. At the same time, Admiral Vex Torin's fleet was detecting the same galactic awakening that Dr. Rodriguez had discovered. Ancient weapons platforms throughout the galaxy were coming online, and they were all turning toward the Forbidden Zone. All ships, maximum acceleration, the Admiral commanded. Whatever the humans have awakened, we need to stop it before it spreads beyond the zone. But as his fleet raced toward the zone, Admiral Vex Torin received a message that changed everything. The message came from the Ethereal Collective, and it contained only 5 words. The test has finally begun. Navigator Chris Walker stood at his station aboard the USS Liberty, staring at displays that showed impossible readings. But for the first time since entering the Forbidden Zone, the numbers were starting to make sense. Not because the readings had changed, but because Chris was remembering things he had never learned. Captain Morrison, he said, his voice steady despite the confusion in his mind, I need to report something that's going to sound crazy. Captain Morrison looked up from the communication station where Amy was still trying to decode the signals. From the massive structure ahead of them. Go ahead, Chris. Sir, the navigation data we've been following isn't just charts of this region, it's a test. The artifacts on Mars were left there specifically for humanity to find, and this entire mission is designed to determine if we're ready for something. Ready for what? Chris touched his console, and suddenly the bridge displays came alive with information that wasn't in their computers. Star charts appeared, showing the galaxy as it existed 50,000 years ago. Trade routes, communication networks, and defensive positions of civilizations that no longer existed, ready to become the guardians of galactic civilization. Dr. Sarah Miller moved to the science station, her instruments now showing readings that matched the ancient star charts. Captain, Chris is right. I'm detecting the remains of massive installations throughout this region. This isn't just a forbidden zone. It's the ruins of the galaxy's former capital. Amy Johnson looked up from her communications array. Sir, I've managed to decode part of the signals from the structure. It's not one communication. It's a test protocol. The structure is evaluating us. Evaluating us for what? To see if we're capable of handling the responsibility of guarding what's inside. Captain Morrison felt the weight of realization. Chris, you said the artifacts were left specifically for humanity. How can you be certain? Chris's hands moved over his controls, accessing information that seemed to flow directly from the ship's navigation systems into his mind. Because every species that reaches spacefaring capability eventually finds similar artifacts. But the artifacts are different, for each species, designed to guide them to different tests. New images appeared on the main display, showing dozens of different alien species throughout galactic history. Each species found artifacts appropriate to their technology and psychology. Each species was guided to the forbidden zone when they were ready. But most species fail the test, Chris continued. They either can't navigate the zone's defenses, or they make it to the center but can't handle what they find there. Dr. Miller was studying the energy readings from the massive structure. What happens to the species that fail? They're allowed to continue existing, but they never advance beyond their current level of development. They become stable members of galactic civilization, but they never become leaders or guardians. Amy's communication equipment suddenly burst with a new signal, much clearer than the others. A voice spoke in perfect English, as if the speaker had known the language for centuries. Humans of the vessel Liberty, you have traveled far to reach this place. We are the architects, the builders of the galaxy's defense network. We have been waiting for your species to arrive. Captain Morrison stepped forward. This is Captain Jake Morrison, representing Earth and humanity. We're here following navigation data found on Mars. Yes, we placed those artifacts on your world. Long before your species developed space travel, we have been monitoring your progress for millennia, waiting for the moment when you would be ready for this test. What kind of test? The voice paused, and the structure ahead of them began to change. Sections that had seemed solid became transparent, revealing the complex machinery inside. At the center, suspended in energy fields, was something that looked like a miniature galaxy. Billions of points of light swirling in perfect formation. You see before you the heart of the galaxy, the control center for all advanced technology in known space. Every faster-than-light drive, every energy weapon, every terraforming device draws its power from this source. Dr. Miller's instruments confirmed what they were seeing. Captain, that thing is the source of the energy signatures we've been detecting. It's not just powerful. It's the foundation of all galactic technology, the architect continued. For 10,000 years we have maintained this facility. But our time as guardians is ending. The galaxy needs new protectors, beings who can guide civilization through the challenges that lie ahead. Why humanity? Captain Morrison asked. We're one of the youngest species in the galaxy. Because youth brings advantages that age cannot. The older species have become set in their ways, bound by traditions and fears. They see the forbidden zone as something to be avoided, but humanity sees it as something to be explored. Amy Johnson received another transmission, this one showing images of human history, the wars, the exploration, the constant push to reach beyond current limitations. Your species has a unique combination of curiosity, adaptability, and stubbornness. When faced with the impossible, you attempt it anyway. When told that something cannot be done, you find a way to do it. Chris Walker was accessing more information from the navigation systems. Captain, there's more. The test isn't just about reaching this place, it's about what we choose to do once we're here. What do you mean? The massive structure began to move, its sections rearranging themselves to form what looked like a docking, Bay. The heart of the galaxy requires constant maintenance and protection. The previous Guardians are dying out, and if new Guardians are not chosen soon, the entire galactic technology network will collapse. Captain Morrison understood the implications. You're asking us to take responsibility for maintaining the technology that every civilization depends on. More than that, you would become the hidden rulers of galactic civilization. Every major decision about technological advancement, every choice about which species receives access to advanced systems, every response to galactic-level threats, all of this would become your responsibility. Dr. Miller looked at her readings with new understanding. Captain, if we refuse, what happens? The network fails within a century. Faster-than-light travel becomes impossible. Advanced energy systems shut down. The galactic community collapses back into isolated planetary civilizations. And if we accept? Humanity becomes the secret guardians of galactic civilization. You guide technological development from behind the scenes, ensuring that advanced systems are used for creation rather than destruction. Captain Morrison looked around at his crew. These were scientists and explorers, not rulers or guardians, but they were also humans, and humans had never backed down from a challenge. We need time to consider this decision. This affects our entire species, not just our crew. Time is a luxury that is no longer available, the architect replied. The Galactic Defense Network has been activated by your presence. Ancient weapon systems throughout the galaxy are powering up, preparing for a threat that they believe you represent. Amy's communications equipment showed her the scope of the problem. Captain, I'm detecting massive military fleets moving toward our position. It looks like every major civilization is sending ships to stop us. They seek to destroy you before you can complete the test, believing that humanity's failure will reset the network and give them another 1,000 years of stability. Chris Walker looked at his navigation displays with growing alarm. Captain, the fleets will reach the zone's perimeter in 6 hours. Once they arrive, completing the test will become impossible. Captain Morrison realized that humanity was facing its greatest moment of decision. Accept the responsibility of guarding galactic civilization, or watch both their own species and the galaxy itself face technological collapse. But as he prepared to make his choice, Dr. Miller detected something else from the structure ahead, another presence, one that had been waiting in the shadows for this exact moment. Dr. Sarah Miller's instruments detected the second presence just as the USS Liberty was preparing to dock with the Architect facility. The readings were unlike anything she had seen before. Massive, ancient, and radiating what could only be described as pain. Captain Morrison, she called urgently, there's something else in there, something the architects haven't told us about. Captain Morrison was studying the docking procedures that Chris Walker's navigation system was displaying, when Sarah's alarm interrupted him. What kind of something? Sir, I'm detecting a second consciousness inside the structure. It's massive, possibly larger than the architect presence, but it's contained somehow, imprisoned. The voice of the architect came through their communication system, and for the first time it carried a note of reluctance. You have detected the Void Caller. We had hoped to explain its presence after you had accepted your role as guardians. Amy Johnson's communication equipment suddenly filled with a different kind of signal. Where the architect's voice was calm and measured, this new presence sent waves of emotion, anguish, loneliness, and a desperate hunger that made the entire crew feel sick. What is the Void Caller? Captain Morrison asked. It was once like us, a guardian species from a previous galactic cycle, but it was corrupted by its power. transformed into something that consumes reality itself. We have kept it imprisoned here for 50,000 years. Dr. Miller's readings showed the scope of the prison. Captain, the entire structure is designed around containing this thing. The heart of the galaxy isn't just a control system, it's a lock. Navigator Chris Walker accessed more information from the ship's systems, his mind now fully connected to the ancient navigation network. What he learned made his hands shake. Captain, there's more to this test than the architects told us. Every Guardian species eventually faces the same choice. Destroy the Void Caller, continue its imprisonment, or find another solution. What did the previous Guardians choose? Continued imprisonment. But each time, the prison weakens. The Void Caller learns more about its cage, becomes better at escaping. The architects estimate that the current prison will fail within the next century. Captain Morrison felt the weight of cosmic responsibility. So our choice isn't just about becoming Guardians. We have to decide what to do with a creature that could destroy the galaxy. The architect's voice returned, carrying millennia of exhaustion. Previous Guardian species have attempted many solutions. Some tried to destroy the Void Caller, but it exists partially outside normal reality. It cannot be killed by conventional means. Others attempted to move it to isolated regions of space, but it corrupts whatever it touches. Amy Johnson was receiving more communications from the imprisoned entity. Unlike the architect's clear messages, these came as floods of images and emotions. Captain, I'm getting something from the Void Caller itself. It's trying to communicate. What is it saying? Sir, it's hard to interpret, but I think it's asking for help. Not to be released, but to be healed somehow. Dr. Miller studied her readings more carefully. Captain, I'm detecting something unusual about the Void Caller's energy signature. It's not naturally evil or destructive. It's damaged. What do you mean? Sir, the reading suggests that the Void Caller was once a normal consciousness like the architects, but something happened to it. Some kind of psychic trauma that transformed it into what it is now. Chris Walker was accessing deeper levels of the navigation database, learning about the ancient war that had created this situation. Captain, I'm seeing records of what happened to the Void Caller's species. They were the Guardians before the architects, responsible for maintaining galactic civilization for over 1 million years. What changed them? They discovered something. At the edge of the galaxy, a region where reality itself was breaking down. When they tried to fix it, the damage infected their minds. Their entire species was transformed into creatures that consumed reality instead of protecting it. Captain Morrison began to understand the true scope of the test. So the Void Caller isn't evil by choice. It's the victim of cosmic damage that drives it to destroy what it once protected. The architect confirmed his understanding. Correct. This is why the test is so difficult. The simple solutions, destruction or eternal imprisonment, are both failures. The Void Caller suffers constantly, and its suffering grows stronger over time. Eventually, that suffering will break any prison we can build. Amy's communication equipment showed her images from the Void Caller's memories. She saw a species much like humanity, curious and eager to help others. She saw them discovering the reality breakdown at the galaxy's edge and bravely attempting to repair it. And she saw the moment when the damage infected them, turning their protective instincts into destructive compulsions. Captain, Amy said, quietly, I think I understand what the test really is. We're not just being asked to become guardians. We're being asked to find a solution that every other species has failed to discover. Dr. Miller was studying the prison structure with new eyes. "Sir, what if the prison isn't the solution? What if it's part of the problem?" "Explain." The void. Caller is imprisoned alone, cut off from contact with normal reality. Its suffering has nothing to focus on except itself, so it grows stronger over time. But what if isolation is making the damage worse? Captain Morrison felt his mind racing. "You're suggesting that the void caller needs contact, not isolation." "Sir, in human psychology, trauma is often healed through connection and understanding. What if the same principle applies to cosmic-level damage?" Chris Walker was accessing information about human approaches to psychological healing. "Captain, the database shows that humanity has developed unique methods for treating mental trauma, methods that other species have never attempted." "Because they're too dangerous?" "No, sir. Because they require a level of empathy and risk-taking that most species consider irrational." Captain Morrison looked around at his crew. They were suggesting something that went against every instinct of self-preservation. Instead of maintaining the prison or finding a way to destroy the void caller, they were proposing to try healing it. "Captain," Dr. Miller continued, "the void caller's original. Species tried to repair reality itself. That kind of cosmic empathy suggests they were similar to humans in some ways. If we could establish a connection with what remains of its original personality, we might be able to help it remember what it used to be." Amy finished. "The architect's voice returned, carrying what sounded like amazement. "No guardian species has ever proposed such an approach. The risk would be enormous. Contact with the void caller could infect your minds with the same damage that destroyed its species. Captain Morrison made the decision that would define humanity's role in galactic history. Sometimes the most human response is the most irrational one. We're going to try to help it. And if you fail, then we'll face the consequences together. But if we succeed, we won't just be solving the problem, we'll be proving that there's always another option, even when everyone else has given up." As the Liberty prepared to dock with the Architect facility, the crew began planning something that had never been attempted in galactic history. Not the destruction or continued imprisonment of an ancient threat, but its rehabilitation. Outside the Forbidden Zone, Admiral Vex Torin's fleet was detecting massive energy fluctuations. The prison was responding to the humans' decision, and whatever happened next would determine the fate of both the galaxy and the tortured entity that had been waiting 50,000 years for someone to offer it hope instead of fear. Chief Engineer Katie Brown had never expected her expertise in quantum field mechanics to become the key to healing a cosmic-scale trauma. As the USS Liberty docked with the Architect facility, she was working with Dr. Sarah Miller to design something that had never been attempted. A bridge between human consciousness and an entity that existed partially outside normal reality. "The theory is sound," Katie said, checking her calculations for the 100th time. "If we can create a stable quantum field that allows for controlled contact, we might be able to communicate with the original personality buried inside the void caller." Captain Morrison watched his crew work with a mixture of pride and terror. "Katie, what are the risks?" "Sir, direct contact with the void caller could infect our minds with the same reality-consuming damage that destroyed its species. But if we establish the connection gradually, using human empathy techniques combined with architect technology, we might be able to maintain our own mental integrity while offering it a path back to sanity." Dr. Miller was monitoring the void caller's energy patterns. "Captain, the entity is responding to our presence. its emotional broadcasts are becoming more coherent. I think it can sense that we're trying to help rather than just contain it. Amy Johnson was maintaining contact with the architect consciousness while also preparing communication protocols for the Void Caller. Sir, the architects are providing us with full access to their technology, but they're also warning us that we're attempting something beyond their understanding. How so? They say that every species that becomes guardians thinks logically about the problem. Destroy the threat, contain the threat, or redirect the threat. But humans are the first species to think emotionally about it. Navigator Chris Walker looked up from his station. Captain, I'm detecting the approaching fleets. Admiral Vex Torin's forces will reach the zone perimeter in 2 hours. If we're going to attempt this, it has to be now. Captain Morrison made the final decision. Begin the connection procedure. Katie, you're in charge of maintaining the quantum field. Sarah, monitor our mental states and break the connection if anyone shows signs of reality infection. Amy, establish communication with the Void Caller. I'll serve as the primary contact point. Sir, Katie said, are you sure about making yourself the primary contact? The psychological risk? Katie, I'm the captain. This is my responsibility. The crew began. The most dangerous experiment in galactic history. Katie activated the quantum field generator, creating a bridge of modified space-time between the Liberty's bridge and the Void Caller's prison. The air itself seemed to shimmer as reality became flexible. Dr. Miller watched her instruments carefully as the field stabilized. Connection established. Captain, you should be able to sense the Void Caller's presence now. Captain Morrison felt it immediately. A vast consciousness filled with pain that had been building for 50,000 years. But underneath the suffering, he could sense something else. Hope. The entity knew that someone was finally trying to help rather than just contain. Hello, Captain Morrison said simply, directing his thoughts through the quantum bridge. We're here to help. The response came as a flood of emotions and fragmented memories. Captain Morrison saw flashes of the Void Caller's original species, beings who looked remarkably human in their curiosity and compassion. He saw their discovery of the reality breakdown at the galaxy's edge, their desperate attempts to repair it, and the moment when the cosmic damage infected their minds. But he also saw something that the architects had missed. The Void Caller wasn't just damaged. It was struggling against the damage, fighting to remember what it used to be. I can see your memories, Captain Morrison said. You were guardians once, like we're supposed to become. You tried to fix something that was broken, and it broke you instead. The Void Caller's response was clearer now, transmitted through the quantum bridge as actual words. Tried to heal, became destroyer, cannot stop. Amy Johnson was monitoring the communication. Captain, it's fighting against its own destructive impulses. The reality damage doesn't just make it consume things, it compels it to consume things against its will. Dr. Miller made a connection. Captain, what if the Void Caller's prison isn't just keeping it from destroying the galaxy? What if it's also keeping it from healing itself? Katie Brown understood immediately. The isolation prevents it from forming the connections it needs to remember its original purpose. It's trapped in a cycle of suffering because it has nothing to focus on except its own damage. Captain Morrison felt a moment of clarity. That's why humanity was chosen for this test. Every other species saw the Void Caller as a threat to be contained, but we see it as a patient to be healed. He directed his thoughts back to the entity. What if we gave you something to protect instead of something to destroy? What if we helped you remember why you became guardians in the first place? The Void Caller's response was stronger now, less fragmented. Protect. Yes. Purpose. But damage. Spreads. Katie had an idea. Captain, what if we don't try to cure the damage? What if we redirect it? What do you mean? The reality-consuming effect is part of the Void Caller now. We can't remove it without destroying the entity. But what if we could turn that ability into something constructive? Dr. Miller caught on to the concept. Instead of consuming healthy reality, it could consume damaged reality, areas of space where the fabric of the universe is torn or corrupted. Amy Johnson was already scanning galactic databases. Captain, there are dozens of regions throughout the galaxy where space itself is damaged from ancient wars or cosmic accidents. The galactic community has just accepted that these areas are permanently ruined. Captain Morrison felt excitement building. You're suggesting that the Void Caller could become a cosmic healer instead of a cosmic destroyer. Exactly. Its reality-consuming ability could be used to remove damaged space-time, allowing healthy reality to grow back in its place. Captain Morrison shared the concept with the Void Caller through the quantum bridge. The response was immediate and powerful, a surge of hope and purpose that had been missing for 50,000 years. Yes, the entity said, its communication now clear and strong. Purpose, healing, protecting. Like before, Katie began modifying the quantum field, creating a new type of connection between the Void Caller and the heart of the galaxy. Instead of imprisonment, the entity would become a partner in maintaining galactic civilization. Captain, Amy reported, the architect consciousness is amazed. They say the quantum field modifications are creating a symbiotic relationship instead of a containment system. As the new connections stabilized, the massive structure around them began to change. The prison walls dissolved, replaced by coordination interfaces that would allow the Void Caller to work with the Galactic Technology Network instead of against it. Dr. Miller watched in wonder as the entity's energy signature transformed from chaotic destruction to purposeful creation. Captain, it's working. The Void Caller is using its reality-consuming ability to repair damaged sections of space-time around the facility. Admiral Vex Torin's fleet reached the zone perimeter just as the transformation completed. Instead of finding a dangerous human ship threatening galactic security, they discovered something unprecedented. The Forbidden Zone was healing itself, damaged space-time being repaired for the first time in galactic history. The Architect Consciousness sent a message to the approaching fleets. The test is complete. Humanity has chosen partnership over domination, healing over destruction. The galaxy has new guardians, and the ancient threat has become an ancient ally. Captain Morrison stood on his bridge, watching as the Void Caller began its new role as a cosmic healer. Across the galaxy, damaged regions of space were being identified and prioritized for repair. The entity that had been a threat for 50,000 years was now becoming the galaxy's greatest protector. Captain, Amy said, we're receiving messages from across the galaxy. Every major civilization wants to know how we did it. Captain Morrison smiled. Tell them we did the most human thing possible. When everyone else saw an enemy, we saw someone who needed help. When everyone else saw a problem to be solved, we saw a person to be healed. As the USS Liberty prepared to begin its new role as humanity's first guardian ship, the crew realized they had done more than pass a test. They had shown the galaxy that the most powerful solution to any problem was often the most compassionate one. The Forbidden Zone was no longer forbidden. It had become humanity's gift to galactic civilization, a place where the impossible became possible, where ancient enemies became eternal allies, and where the universe itself could be healed by those brave enough to try.